got them pouring out of the hive. Look at all them bees. Well, hello, everybody. How y'all doing tonight?
Good.
What's happening?
Welcome to the Thursday Night Bee Chat. Hope y'all are doing well. Well, what a cast of characters we've already got in here tonight. Mr. Barry, Troy, and me again, Joey. How y'all doing?
I just took a left and here I was. I don't know how I got here.
It happens. Y'all all doing okay?
Pretty good.
Yep.
Real good.
So what's going on in your neck of the wood, Troy? It kind of warmed up around here, and it's still getting that rain we had is pretty much gone.
We got some dry weather finally. It dried up, and we got some drier weather. And it felt hot today in that bee suit, but it was probably only about 80, 79 or 80. Felt like about 95 after I've been out there for about an hour.
It's funny how that works.
But yeah, I had to come in the house and cool off, but it was a good day.
Okay, good deal. How about you, Joey? What you been up to?
Nothing beekeeping hardly the last few days. I think it's probably been at least a week or a little more since I've even popped the lid on one. I don't know if I mentioned it in my live last week or not. I did have one dead out. I saw bees robbing, and it was one, I don't know what happened. Everything was still good and clean when I found it, so I was able to take it all out and put it in the freezer.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
it happens.
weather-wise, we've been looking at a good bit of rain. Today it is a pretty day. Today it was cool. But, they talking about rain. I was just looking at it the next several days. But mine always changes anyway. So
Yeah.
I live in part of Louisiana where it might rain for 30 minutes and steam the rest of the day. You know?
And last but certainly not least,
Yeah, he's loose sometimes too.
is Mr. Mike Berry. How you doing, Mike? Thank you so much for joining our little party tonight.
I'm glad I finally could. Most of the time I get in when we got daylight this long, I usually get in and I will turn on YouTube to see what's happening on any of the chats. And usually it's like 8:30, 9 o'clock, and I'm catching the ends of them. I stop in, say something on the chat and say, hey, everybody, and then it's over. But no, we're doing good down here. Just like Joey said, just a lot of rain. But fortunately, we had enough weather where the bees look like they filled up some supers. So I was able Sunday afternoon to pull about 20 supers off just to kind of get started, just to get some empties in case I need some space, because there's probably about 80 more out there that got to be pulled. But I went and extracted them today. I got my line up and running the way I want it with my clarifier, and I got my float switch from JL Apiaries. I got my drum set up with the alarms, and I got my spring feet going. And I'm gonna tell you what, I learned something today about them spring feet, that when you ain't got to babysit that extractor, man, that takes a whole nother level of stress off you as you're extracting. And I'll tell you, I extracted honey only about 4 hours a day, knocked out about 20 supers, non-frame supers, and
Nice.
filled up a drum of honey. So
Some of it real thick like mine was.
no,
Yeah.
I did hit a few. I hit a few blackberry. You know, I recognized the supers. It was a light blue one, and another one that I had pulled off of a colony that I'd made a Facebook post like a month and a half ago of me holding up a beautiful frame of honey, and that was that super. It was blackberry super honey, and that was those few supers that came off of those hives. Those early hives were the only ones that were thick. The rest of it was just as beautiful. It was lighter. It was pure tallow, just as mild and mellow a honey as you ever taste in your life. Just, it was wonderful. But yeah, I just been cutting frames and cleaning up the honey house and getting ready to just start doing a lot of harvesting now. Thank goodness.
It sounds like you got things in order down there. So so that rain didn't mess y'all's tallow up any that you were having before or during when the flow started?
I think it messed up some people, like Joey, where he's at. He didn't start till like his tallow didn't come in till later. But then over in Baton Rouge, they came in early. So I talked to the old bee inspector yesterday. He's retired now, but he texts me every now and then to see what's going on. And he said it's average at best over there because it started coming in heavy and then they got all the rain. Ours started and we got 4 days of rain, but then we got 8 days of sunshine. And those 8 days is where they capitalized on almost everything, which it actually is my video coming Sunday, where they took those 8 days in tallow. When it comes hard, man, it fills up fast, and they filled the majority of supers. And then we just went rain off and on. So I think in most of the area around where I'm at, it went pretty well. They got in between the rainstorms and did pretty well.
Okay. Yeah, that's from even listening to Bruce talking about when the tallow really starts rolling. It's apparently a pretty amazing thing. I think some of y'all have compared it to a shower head.
Yeah.
So
Well, when it's going good, you can dump a 5-gallon bucket out on the ground in the middle of your bee yard and they won't touch it.
wow,
They won't touch that honey because that nectar's coming in.
good times.
Yeah. And you can smell it. So this time, like last year, it was average. The nectar flow was. This year, you can walk near the trees and you could smell the tallow in the air. And when you can smell it in the air, it's flowing good, and they're packing the supers. Yeah, he didn't pay it.
Yeah.
Oh, Mississippi must be having some rain.
Yeah. It's rained north of us. Yeah, it's really been bad. I mean, it rained yesterday, and then it out of nowhere. I was working bees. It wasn't supposed to rain for 3 hours, and then it poured on me out there. I got stung, man. When that rain hit, it's like it turned on the mean streak, and they just lit me up, man. And I was like, golly, on video now. It's on video, so I can prove it. But golly,
It's funny how that happens. They can turn on a dime. You go from friend to foe.
Yeah.
Crazy year as far as the bee world. I've never seen so much part of the day where you can just drop a little nectar somewhere or honey, and the bees are going to come after it. When you work in the yard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, it was earlier in the month, but the video that's coming out Friday, I had bees trying to get in those boxes while I was pulling frames.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it changes on a dime. We kind of, once the poplar pooped out around here, kind of had I don't want to call it a dearth, but there was a week or so there where the ladies started washboarding and hanging out on the landing board and, all that stuff they do when they ain't got nothing else to do, and into everything. I put some equipment out to clean, and they definitely showed up for that. Last time I tried to get them to clean something, nobody showed up, and I had to do it myself. So, but yeah, they're ready to go now. But now they've started flying again. We got mimosa blooming and sumac, and the clover's still hanging in there nicely. So, but that'll be about the end of it for us. 3 weeks, and it'll be dearth time around here. So
I found that interesting when I went to North Carolina to that convention to speak, and it was a June. It was about June or something, and because it was hot, man, it was hot. And I remember talking to all the North Carolina guys outside of the mountainous areas, and that's what they were saying. They're like, "No, we're done." I mean, I said, "You're done?" They said, "Yeah, we're done. We're finished." I said, "Yeah, but you're so much further north." They're like, "Nope." And you guys begin about the same time as us and end usually a couple weeks before us, and it's done. Like it's it. If you didn't get it, you ain't getting it.
Yep. Now I noticed sourwood around here is starting to bloom, putting out the little tassels. But the sourwood at my elevation, the bees don't really get much out of it. You got to get
Right.
on the other side of North Wilkesboro up 1,200, 1,500 foot. I'm a little bit less than 1,000 here, so I'm sure the bees get something off of it, get some pollen, whatever. But you can't really make sourwood honey right here. So,
Right.
but yeah, the sourwood, the sumac, the mimosa, and the clover. and it's over.
That's it.
Ain't
We
no
had a couple. We had a couple days where they was robbing real bad. I tried to take some honey off the hives, and they run me out of the bee yard. I had to go quit what I was doing. But other than that, they're on something now. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm told it's elderberry.
Okay.
But there's a really distinct smell around the hives, and they're totally busy. I just went out there a while ago and pulled a half super off, set it on the ground, and nobody even touched. They didn't even act like they knew it was there.
Okay. Yeah, you got
Didn't
something
touch
going on. Yeah, I think we've got some of that elderberry around here too. It's more of a bush, isn't it? It's got kind
I'm
of.
not even sure. I don't know. One
Yeah,
of my
I
buddies
think I
said
know
it was
what that is.
elderberry. I don't know what it is.
It's got a funny
got it.
looking bloom to it.
Mm,
I know the smell is very distinct and unusual for me. I don't remember smelling it before.
yeah.
It blooms alongside our tallow, and we had that year where our tallow froze, and everybody from North Mississippi down got no tallow honey, and we did get honey. About 50% less yield was what the word was across the board, and it was mostly like elderberry and clover. But that elderberry, it actually was it was a really good honey. And the wild elderberry doesn't give a lot of nectar according to the book Hive and Honeybee, but I read a paper on it the other day a guy showed, and it definitely does give some nectar off. So if you got it blooming, they should be hitting it at some point of the part of the day if they got nothing else.
But you can sure smell it. It's almost like fall when the goldenrod or aster, whatever the dirty stalk smell is. It's a good smell though, but it's strong like that.
Okay, so it's that stout of a smell.
It's very, very strong smelling. Yeah, it's
Interesting.
good. Like I say, it's a good sweet smell, but yeah, it's strong.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious to see what this little bit of flow is going on, because the way I pulled my supers this time, I pulled them and the tulip poplar was over. So whatever I catch now is not tulip poplar. So it's kind of like my spring honey. I called it as soon as I saw a bloom.
Is that elderberry?
No, that's tallow.
Tallow.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
I think I've seen that picture.
That's in my front yard. Those may be 3 inches long. I've got another tallow on the other side of my yard. They're about 1.5 inches long. And I got another one that isn't doing anything. Within 100 feet of each other.
Wow.
And everybody else has got tallows like 5 inches long.
And tallow ain't that a real dark honey?
No, it's more of an amber. It's not dark, but it like the stuff I got today was pretty light. You could see down into the drum pretty well, but it's more of an amber. But it's darker. Yeah,
that's got tallow in it.
Yeah, that's it. That's a good color for about tallow right there.
But it's a blend too. It's not just tallow.
But that's about the color of tallow. It's
that looks like my early honey. My light honey is that.
Oh,
I'm
really?
just now starting to get to that.
Yeah, I get darker from there. So
I had a picture of elderberry. That's what I was looking for. But when you see them on side the road, it's just the bloom on them is just like a big mat. Almost looks like a fungus growing on the tree.
I have to look it up.
Okay, interesting.
My honey has gotten much thinner though. We was talking about that early thick honey. You really got to watch. Make sure you're getting most of it capped now. Before you didn't have to worry too much if it was capped or not. It was all thick, but now it's getting a lot thinner and starting to get a little darker.
Yeah. Well, I'll take a minute to thank all the folks over in the chat. Appreciate y'all showing up tonight. A lot of familiar faces. I saw a couple of names I didn't recognize, but appreciate y'all coming out tonight for our little chat. Now I don't know if you all noticed or not. Now the title of the chat was "The Cutting Edge of Beekeeping: A Pinnacle or a Cliff." That could kind of go two ways when you're trying to hang out on that bleeding edge of anything, no matter what kind of technology or whatever it is that you're doing. So just wanted to kind of talk about that tonight. We all know in beekeeping, there's all kinds of enticements constantly coming out, whether it's a new product, a new queen bee, a new technique, a new mite control. Everything we get thrown at us is the best there's ever been. And that probably ain't exactly the total truth. No, we do like the advancements that are going on in our industry. Lord knows we need them. We got a lot of stuff going against us, especially on the mite front. You know, whether we're looking at mite treatments or queen genetics or whatever it is that we're doing. But I just kind of wanted to throw that topic out and get some opinions on how you navigate the potholes and pitfalls and good stuff. You know, when you run across something that gets thrown at you, how do you make a decision? You know, I need to do this. I need to wait. I don't want no part of it. What do you think there, Mike? How do you navigate that pothole filled road?
I stay on the side of the road and park, and I let everybody else navigate the road for about 3 years, and I watch them and I see what happens. Because it's I tell you what, the advancements are nuts right now when it comes, and I really believe it's all got to do with social media. Really helps push them out there, and the problem is it can be hyped up and it can be talked about and it can be shown, but until the proof's in the pudding, I like to sit on the side of the road and watch it, because it's just like treatments is a big one. I'll sit back and watch what people are doing. I did get the Varroa, the Varoxan, because I like extended release had already been out there. So I said, well, let me try it. My mite loads were low at the time. I didn't like it with the way it worked. I wish I would have waited and watched somebody else's brood and seen what it did to it. But I like to sit back and watch and see what happens, because it's thrown at us so hard now with social media, and there's good stuff and there's bad stuff. And then there's stuff that I don't even know if it does anybody any good, gadget wise. I think, again, I'll try gadgets here and there, but I like to just watch and see what are y'all seeing, and because with social media, I can watch everybody else do it. And honestly, as a creator, I get stuff thrown at me all the time. And I won't put it on video. There's a fella that sent me something and I used it, and then I realized it don't work with migratory lids, but I wouldn't feature it. I didn't want to hurt him because he may have a great idea, but it's one of those things where I'll try it, but I don't know. I like to sit back and just see I like to see how it pans out. I want to see what happens. Just like Naroa, that's another one. I want to watch it. I'm not spending big bucks on something until I see somebody show me some results. There's too many things that have been working that I'm okay with right now, that I don't need to spend a lot of money until I see it works out better than what I'm using now, kind of deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I had one of the folks I helped had watched something on YouTube about Naroa, and he was just full of information when I got there today about it and how he thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. And we just had to talk through that a little bit. And
good. You need to. That's what I mean. You just said the example I was talking about. Oh, you see. Oh man, I can't imagine how many times I'll sit at a meeting and say, "Stay off of YouTube. Go get a book. Come to the meeting and meet these people and find a mentor." But goodness gracious, stay off of YouTube for that kind of stuff, because you hear mites are bad, you hear things are dying, then somebody comes on and says Naroa is the next best thing. Now it's going to work. It's going to do this. And look, you're going to jump right on it. Mm-hmm. And I did that with oxalic acid years ago before it was legal in the States. It was the best thing ever. Well, everybody's been doing it in Europe. Boom, I bought it. I spent all this money. I don't know if I was doing any good or not. Now, fortunately, oxalic acid did work out vapor to be a good thing. But what if it wasn't? I spent all that money for nothing just because I didn't know any better. I didn't have mentors. I didn't have somebody like you coming over and talking me through that and getting me off that ledge and saying, come on back off that ledge real quick. Let's talk about Naroa,
Yeah. Well, nothing, everything he said was exactly what you hear from Man Lake, which obviously is going to be all the good stuff. But,
right.
You got to think about, how big of a mite problem you got. It's not going to knock it down. They're still going to be there. They just can't have babies. And some more can come, there's some issues there. I want to see how it all plays out. But yeah, there's very few silver bullets out there. Very, very few.
Right.
So,
and don't go to the Noroa guy, man, because look, that guy, and I'm not, look, first of all, I'm not saying Noroa is not good. I'm glad for the technology. We sat through where did I just sit there? I just sat through a lady's presentation on that. Oh, it was at that meeting in Purvis last time. Yeah, the lady, she's a researcher out of Southern Miss. And I asked her a bunch of questions about Noroa and what she thought about it, because she's targeting the same technology, and it's a great technology. So I'm not saying it's bad, but buddy, when you go talk to that guy, look, he'll hammer you so fast and so hard with the information, and he's got a stern look on his face, and he won't let you off the hook until you hear him say it's the best thing ever. And it's like, okay, I'm out, man. I'm gonna wait and see.
Yeah. And no legitimate vendor or a maker of a product should be mad at you for wanting to wait for actual results or be able to give you the data. If they're proud of their product and they stand behind their product, then if we stand and watch and the results should be great, then we should buy it. If everything they say is true. So, what do you think, Troy?
I think it's a difficult road to travel. I think you have to be very careful. I think we all get passionate about what we do and what works for us and helping new beekeepers. And we worry when somebody comes along that does some things that maybe we don't think is the best thing that can be done. But I think it comes from a point of being, wanting people to succeed and wanting their bees to do good. And we all got different ideals. And I think, we've talked about before, a lot of things we know what works for us. In my operation, I know what works. I've been doing it a long time, and I know what works. And then, if I see somebody, and it depends on what it is, and I think everybody's that way, that doing something that I think is going to hurt them. I think we have a passion about it. We want new beekeepers to succeed. That's one thing about beekeeping that I've always liked, is I don't feel like I'm competing against anybody. Somebody come out on Facebook the other day and said, where can I get honey in our little town? Mount Washington's close by. And I recommended another beekeeper. I didn't say anything about myself, because I'm going to sell all my honey regardless if I say anything or not. So it's neat that there's no competition, but we have to be careful on what we do. And I think we do sit back and watch other beekeepers. I've got a lot of hobbies, and I've had to narrow them down a little bit, but I used to shoot competition. We would have competition shoots and shoot every week. And the people that I listened to were the people that did better than I did. If they scored better than me and were a better shot than I was, didn't matter how long they've been doing it, didn't matter anything else about it. If they couldn't shoot, I didn't pay too much attention to their advice. But if they did better than me, then I wanted to know what they were doing different that I could be doing better. And I think that's the way it is with beekeeping. I watch all you guys, on YouTube, and, people that I trust and see what they're doing and they're successful at it. Then I start trying to do some of that stuff that you guys are doing. So it's, it is a lot different now. When I started, we didn't have YouTube and social media. We went to the bee club, and we had a bunch of 20-year beekeepers, and until I figured stuff out, I did whatever they did. It didn't matter.
Yep.
But that's just the way we did it. I had to follow what they did, and you have to follow when you're starting out. You have to pick a person and then follow that person. It don't matter what you think about it. You've got to do it the way one person does it, and figure that way out. And then once you get your feet wet and you know what you're doing a little bit, then you can change and start experimenting. And we do a lot of experimenting in beekeeping too, but you can start changing some stuff and doing some stuff different, and you'll have successes and you'll have failures. I think a real beekeeper has had a real beekeeper has had a catastrophe, something has happened, or, tried something that didn't work, or not everything is successful all the time in beekeeping. There's too many, like Brad said a while ago, there's too many variables. There's so many variables and all different things. We're always learning, and it's just hard to know everything to do exactly right every single time.
That's
Oh, yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah, 100%. It but yeah, I think a pattern is forming here. What do you think, Joey? How do you approach this bumpy road?
Well, sometimes some things I see, I turn and walk away. Start with, but Mike's heard me say this a bunch of times. Anytime I'm trying something that I think I've learned from anybody, it may be a good idea or just something I came up with on my own. I try to do 3 to 7 colonies, 3 to 7 years in that same method to see what happens, because so many people will do one thing on one hive that somebody told them to do, and they just happen to get lucky that year and have a good strong hive. Oh, I did this and this is what made it so strong, I'm gonna do it to all of them. And then the next year nothing worked, and then you wonder what happened. I hope I'm making sense there. But in the treatment thing, I hadn't done a lot of the different, some of the other products that a lot of y'all have used. Oxalic acid is my go-to if I need anything. 12 years of beekeeping, and I have seen the doses change. Oh Lord, I done forgot how many times per box in the last 12 years. What's it changed? 4 times? 3 times? 4
At least
times?
3.
And well, I think it's changed 4, but the 4th one isn't official yet.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
But even that was the thing. This is the dose. This is the way it's got to go. And then 2 years later, all the big heads get together and say big heads, the smart people get together and figure out, we've been doing it this way, but this ain't enough. We got to do it this way, because they done the research.
yeah.
You know? And that kind of falls under that 3 to 7 year category.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing I like to do is get information from a lot of different people. I learned this back when I was in my in the construction part of my career as an electrician. When I was an apprentice, and after I turned out and was an electrician, we had plenty of work in our area. But to start with, I was working with the same 20 people that was trained in the same school, trained by the same journeyman. So you kind of like, the one thing, like if I went to this one guy, that one mentor, and that's all I ever did, that's all I ever knew. But when we started getting a lot of work, we had a lot of people from Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and I got to work with them. And 50% of what I know or have forgotten now in the electrical trade, I learned from those guys from out of town, teaching me new ways to do something. It wasn't necessarily new code. It was just new tricks of the trade to get the job done. Does that make sense? But that's kind of why you see me and Mike Berry go to 4 different bee clubs every month now when we can. You hear all these different tricks and everything.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was much of an answer or not, but that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, I think all of us got some similarities. I can pick and choose from all 3 of y'all now that I've got all them good answers. I can claim that, yeah, I agree with everybody. But I kind of compare a lot of it to. I remember back in my younger days when I started hot rodding old cars. Back when I was a teenager, my favorite catalog was the old J.C. Whitney catalog. Y'all remember that one?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
And I wanted everything in there. It had a hot rod section where it had all the. J.C. Whitney was bad about it. It didn't list the names of anything. You didn't know it was a Holley carburetor or a Mallory ignition or it just had 4-barrel carburetors. But you could tell by the different CFMs it was what it was. But yeah, I believed everything I read in there. And I wanted everything that they said was great. But I've learned since then that just ain't the way it works. They're advertising, trying to sell something, and they want me to buy it. So they don't always have my best interest at heart.
Yeah.
No, a
Pete,
lot
I
of
was just last week I was talking to somebody about J.C. Whitney, and
yeah.
I said I told him I used to buy from there all the time. I started buying from there when I was a pre-teenager.
Mhm.
I fill
Yeah.
out the little form, send my $2 in or whatever
Oh,
it was, and wait 6 weeks before that thing come back, because it had to go to all the way to California or
Oh, yeah.
somewhere, and then get filled and send it back. And I told him, I said, could you imagine somebody in this day and age having to go back to J.C. Whitney days?
Oh, yeah.
Man, you can get it 3 days now.
Yeah.
Get lost up next day.
Yeah.
Some of it is.
We'll get off
6
track. We'll get
weeks.
off track a little bit, but that old Jeep that I've got, it's Daddy bought it back in 1969 from a local fire department, and back then all you had for Jeep parts. Now that was a military Jeep, but J.C. Whitney had Jeep parts, and a Sears had a Jeep catalog. You remember when Sears had all them catalogs? You could get the fishing catalog and the Jeep catalog, and that was the only place you could get parts. And we had a heck of a time finding stuff. And once the internet fired up, Lord, there's parts everywhere. But back in 1969, that just ain't the way it was. But
I had a Chilton manual for every car I ever owned.
there you go. I still do.
For seeing how to work on it. Now I just look up a YouTube video.
It's funny how y'all talk about that though, because like you're talking about the catalogs and the way things were, but like Troy talking about the Chilton one. So you get those Chiltons would cover like 3 or 4 models, and I compare that to beekeeping. That talk I just did at our club last month, Joey, where you can go to that Chilton manual, and whatever model car you pick out the one, whichever paragraph applies to your car, you follow those instructions, like in rebuilding the car. Well, nowadays there's YouTube videos on that, and I try to tell people you can go to YouTube and you can figure out how to build a car, but it's going to tell you exactly how to do that particular holly that you're building or that Edelbrock. But you know what? With beekeeping, you can't do that. You go out there and you start watching them videos, and next thing you know, you're off on the wrong track because every single hive ain't the same. It ain't like that. And you remind me of that because you remind me, Troy, when you said that Chilton manual for every car, because I'm telling you, man, these people go to YouTube to figure this beekeeping thing out, and then they get inundated with all this new cutting edge technology. And I think, like, I love new stuff and gadgets, but I'm going to tell you, man, there's the edge is more than, to me, I mean, there's good. There's always some good with change, depending on what you're changing, but there's so much out there, man, that it's a cliff more than it's a pinnacle. I feel like when you're new, and what Troy said is what I say at my mentorship lecture, man. These new beekeepers, especially, and this happens to all of us, even older beekeepers. But you stay with that first mentor your first year at a minimum. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing on YouTube, or all you're doing is undermining that mentor, and you ain't learning it. And boy, when you start getting inundated, that's where social media. Look, it's good and it's bad, but that's where it's gotten people where they're seeing all this cutting edge that the old timer sitting back like me sitting there going, I'd hold off on that just a minute. That looks so flow hive. There's a good one. It works. It does work, but it don't teach you that you need to be a beekeeper.
Yeah.
So is that a pinnacle or a cliff? Well, for the new beekeeper that goes and gets it and throws some bees in it, but it's a cliff because it probably ain't gonna work out.
Yeah, that was one of the examples that popped in my head first thing when I thought of that title was the flow hive. I'm sure all of y'all have been asked about buying a flow hive.
Yeah,
people see the ads, and Lord knows it can work. We've seen it before. Where Fred Dunn, he can take one and get it on a strong hive and push all the right buttons, and he can turn the valve and honey runs out. But that ain't the way it works for most folks.
He's a master beekeeper.
Yeah.
He studied bees in
they buy one and put a weak hive in it, and it's a very expensive hive.
That's
so
right.
And they also always practice single brood chamber management. Somebody just learning might need to go with a double brood chamber, using that flow hive. I saw a man the other day. Guy was coming to buy some queens, and he was actually buying a package. And the guy he bought them from told him, he said, I know they tell you to go with one chamber. He said, right now, this is your first colony. You need to go with two deeps on there.
You know, that question you just popped up, I disagree. Books can carry you further than you think, really, because and I don't disagree in an ugly way, not at all. Sticky business be. What I'm saying is, my advice is the book and learning. Like, if you're reading the book, like some of the basic beekeeping books with the basic bee biology, if you're reading and learning, I agree, it can only take you so far with what you're seeing and what you're putting your hands on. I agree with that. You're right. It can only take you so far. But you can still go to good research papers and good, like, for example, Clemson, or you can go, I think it's Missouri's got Missouri or Arkansas, one of those universities has a great place where you can go. And it's not a book, but it is a study course that shows you the photos of what you're looking at when you have problems in your hive, things like that. And if you really follow the book and follow bee biology and go to those other research facilities or those institutions and look at their stuff, if you have nobody else that's a mentor in your community, those things will lead you a good ways. North Carolina is another one. Y'all got a good program. That book right there, that Beekeeping for Dummies book has a thing for fall, winter, and you go
It's a great book.
far, but I think if you don't have anybody in your area and you can't have a mentorship program wherever you're at or anything like that, then those institutions have great, like LSU has a great PDF that goes through everything. So, I mean, yeah, they can only take you so far, but I really believe the books and learning it and applying it out in the bee yard, even if you have to take the book in the bee yard with you. That's how I did it, and that's why I say that.
Yeah, that's all we had with books.
Yeah, I didn't have any mentors.
Yeah. I see what they're saying, though, as far as, YouTube does, you can see a lot of stuff on YouTube. But you just got to be careful, to me, the people I listen to are the people with the most experience and has a good number of hives that have more than just a couple of hives. Those are the people that's had experience and been through some stuff. Like I say, maybe had some things go bad and worked through them and have learned from their mistakes. A lot of, probably most of the lessons that I've learned are from screwing stuff up. And if you talk to an older beekeeper, you're talking to somebody he knows that because he screwed it up so many times. It's not because they read it or they seen it, on a YouTube videos because of their experience. There's a little bit of, there's so many things in beekeeping that's there's two sides, insulation or ventilation. There's all kind of stuff that has two sides to it. But one of the things is experience versus science, the science of beekeeping. But one of the things from being beekeeping so long that you see is that the science, science is supposed to be, well, that's the way it is. Well, the science, when I started 27 years ago, was that screen bottoms got rid of 70% of the mites. That was the science of the day. This is a mite, it's going to take care of our mite problem. Just put screen bottom boards on. Well, it turns out, that's like a lot of science over the years. Things come back around and you realize it maybe not as good as you thought it was. I like them and I use a lot of them and I keep them open all year round, but it's not quite as good as we once thought.
You're right too, and that science changes. Like it is, as it changes, and now something else is new. I think though, what happens is as it's changing, and you're gaining that, as they're gaining that experience, you'll begin to learn what's changing. You'll begin to see it. You'll begin to then be able to go on YouTube and decipher what's right and what's wrong. And look, when I say YouTube, I would say there's great guys out there. Like there's guys that can teach, and whether you like or dislike the guy, David Burns teaches on a good channel. I used to send people to his channel because he does a lot of good, easy, basic. But if you see what David Burns is saying, it's stuff you find in the books, right? And it is newer stuff and things. So there's good teaching channels out there, no doubt. But I also know that me not having anybody, as I began beekeeping and gained that experience, like you said, Troy, experience is so important, man. And finding that experienced person, I began to find the beekeepers now in my community. Like then I found the people, and I feel like he or she will find the people as they get more experience and more experience. I feel like they'll find the people, or the experience will carry them. You know, you like you say, you make those mistakes, and then you'll go, well, I can't do that again. And find the right people on YouTube. That clown down in Southeast Louisiana, man, that does it his way. Don't be messing with him. You'll kill every hive you got.
Yeah, no. Did you see Brad's comment there, Mike?
Yeah. Yeah. But see, Brad is right. Don't tell him it's a how-to, because that guy's going to kill your bees.
Right. But I think there's a lot of credibility in that. I think this little community that we've put together here, most all of us are saying the same thing. You know, this is not the way you got to do it. This is how I do it, and it works for me. You know,
right.
And we can't, you know, the fellow that didn't have a mentor in his community, you know, I ain't gonna say we're the next best thing, but I think this little community we put together has a lot of trustworthy folks, and we'll tell them what we think, you know, and with the crowd that we've got, we've almost got the whole nation covered. You know, we're from California to Texas to Canada to Pennsylvania, up in Maine, Florida, you know, we're everywhere. So, you know, that's a big thing when folks start watching YouTube. They come up with some crazy idea they saw on YouTube, you know, and it's one of my folks here in North Carolina, and they've been watching some guy down in Australia, and it's the middle of winter, and they think they need to be doing something. I'm like, where were you watching? And they tell me, I'm like, that's a different hemisphere.
Yeah.
You can't watch that show. Watch it for entertainment, and what he's doing, we'll do it 6 months from now.
Yeah,
but not now.
Right.
So
I tell you, there's things I do in my bee yard right now that I wasn't taught, and I just done them. You'll probably never see some of it on video, but I do it. And the only way you would probably ever see it if you happen to be in my bee yard with me when I do it. There's several things I do that I will not tell people what I do. I told that in a couple of meetings back, didn't I, Mike?
Mm-hmm.
I am not going to teach anybody, hey, you need to do this. But it's things I do, and you ain't going to find it in no book either.
Well, I do think when they gain experience and they start messing with their hives like that, they'll, you know, just like me, I didn't have anybody. And then when YouTube, I started figuring out who was on fire and who wasn't. And, you know, who was down to earth. And, you know, then I kind of, you know, well, wait, that guy's way up there, and that's not going to work, you know. And I did start figuring it out on my own until then I started meeting people and going to clubs more often.
Yeah, no doubt it's a complicated little world we're in, but you just see you know, like we talked earlier. I mean, it's everything from techniques, how to do things, whether it's splits or you kind of I don't want to step on no toes, but the catchphrase this year has been Demeray.
Oh my gosh!
For sure.
You didn't bring it
Where
up.
you look,
For sure.
Last year too. That was the word last year too.
And I swear, I'll challenge anybody. I mean, they got 2 queens in a hive and they make a bunch of honey. Well, I'll take 2 queens in 2 hives and I'll make a bunch of honey. So
yeah,
I don't. It's something cool. It's something to play with, and that's something I wanted to mention. You know, if you want to do this and you want to be on that cutting edge and have the bestest queen in a plastic box and you know, in the row and everything, you know, if you want to have the newest and latest and greatest, that's fine. That's freedom. You can do what you want to, but you ain't got to. You know, all the new folks out there, you ain't got to do all that. You know, all my queens are mutts. All my bees are mutts. I ain't got no VSH queens or anything great. No doubt those queens are awesome. They're doing some amazing things with genetics, but you ain't got to have that. There's other ways to do it. So, yeah, that's what I try to do.
Your bees are like mine. They don't know they old country hick bees, huh?
Yeah, they're like the hillbillies. They didn't know they was poor till somebody told them.
That's part of the fun of beekeeping is, you know, experimenting. I couldn't wait till I learned enough where I could start experimenting. I always thought that I know a better way to do this, and I'd have to try it and find out and fall on my face to find out them guys really knew what they was talking about. But you see a lot of new beekeepers doing that now. They're kind of get their feet wet and then they'll try something. And it's kind of like your kids, you hate to see your kids make mistakes, but new beekeepers are going to have to try stuff. That's part of their growing process. They're going to try this and it ain't going to work, but they got to try it. They got to go through the experience of trying it.
Mm-hmm. They got it. They got to get that experience of falling on their face. And we all have. It's, Keith, you mentioned the VSH thing. That's a great example of what's going on is the VSH. VSH, when I first started beekeeping, it was SMR, and VSH was the new term for SMR. And Dr. John Harbaugh and Dr. Jeff Harris were running this technology in the USDA bee lab in Baton Rouge. I got my first bees from John Harbaugh. And they were an open mated VSH queen. I didn't know anything. I just kind of started reading about it, trying to figure it out. And it kind of went away because YouTube wasn't that big with beekeepers yet. Well, then here's a prime example of cutting edge or Pinnacle. And what you just said was key. You got to figure out what you want to do in your operation. Well, VSH comes out. Now VSH it started with the hive life and things. You started hearing a lot more about it. And it's great. It's great. Genetics. I mean, they're proving things are working out. Jeff Harris can show you the studies they did when they first started messing with SMR, and he can show you where it does work. The bees are better bees, but they have some problems here and there. They couldn't figure out how to have them make more honey, but it's so they've got all that working out. But man, when YouTube lit up with VSH, what'd you say earlier? Just like the Demray, everybody jumped on it. And didn't go and research it and understand what it was and what it takes to make a yard VSH trait a majority of your bees. That how you're supposed to not treat it all. Make sure you're culling your queens. You're doing mite washes constantly. Once your mite washes are done, you cull the bad ones. You put new ones in. You Harbaugh assay the good ones. And you have to do that for years to get it. Like Corey Stevens has done that for years. That's how he's got what he's got. But boy, people were jumping on it. They were ordering VSH queens like it was a silver bullet, not realizing that second generation lost every ounce of that trait. Not knowing, you know what I mean? As it flew up in the tree, it was gone, baby. And so that's the part of it that I get where you got to be with mentors. You got to be watching the right people. And if you're watching everybody, like I like to do, you need to study out what they're saying and understand it. And that's where I go back to. I just sit on the side of the road and watch it and read about it and learn about it. And I watch everybody else try and fall on their face because it hurts me a lot less when they hit their nose on the pavement than when I hit my nose on the pavement. And I can learn from other people's mistakes just as easy. I promise you.
How you doing, Brad?
That doing just great, thanks. That's Mike. A smart man learns from his own mistakes, and a wise man learns from somebody else's.
When I was in sixth grade, two boys ran around the corner of a school building. One was running in one direction, and one running the other, and they both hit head to head. They had big old bruises on their head, and they was just squalling. Guess what? 60 years later, I still ain't ran around the corner of a building.
Yep. No future in that. So what do you think about this conversation, Brad? How do you what do you think about all this this bumpy road we're talking about, and how do you navigate it?
By the grace of God. That's really all I can say. It's just there's like I say, there's so many variables. You try to, and you can't even half the time keep up with the variables you're aware of, right? A lot of times we get short on our treatments, or a lot of times we'll miss our feeding schedule, or miscalculate a flow or a dearth or something like that, and then the bees get compromised, or they just don't do as well as they could. So even the things we know, it's so difficult to be the perfect steward of these bugs, right? And when you think of the variables that we're aware of and the variables that we can control, and I'm speaking for myself, really, that have have sometimes a fairly loose grasp on controlling the ones I can control, let alone the ones I don't even know about. And I'll do something one day or 1 year, and it'll work great. You do exactly the same thing later on, it doesn't work at all, or worse. And so that's just all those other variables that we're unaware of. And so you just have to not let it drive you mad. I think it's. I think that's what we like. Maybe beekeepers are just the ultimate masochists, right? They're obsessed by something they can't master.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the allure of it.
Part of the fun.
That's that old saying about if it was easy, everybody would do it. But
Yeah.
I think that actually plays pretty true in beekeeping. It definitely keeps it interesting because it's not too bad. We were talking about that earlier. What the way I do things works for me, and it's hard to make me quit doing exactly the same thing I like doing because it works and I understand it and it's easy for me. But sometimes you turn all the knobs to the same setting and all at once it don't quite work like it did last year. It's like, what changed? Well, the weather, different time of year, you got a different queen. I mean, you can go down the list. Everything changed. Everything changed with you. So
and again, all those variables that you're not aware of changed.
Yeah.
Or maybe they did. I think about wintering a lot, and regardless of what kind of climate a person's in, I think about wintering, and it's such a challenge because we're trying to set up a static, passive HVAC scenario for a colony that we don't know exactly how vigorous they are, what genetics exactly that they have. Are they going to eat lots? Are they going to eat little? Are they going to we don't know exactly the characteristics of it. We don't know what kind of a winter is coming by. So we're trying to set up one system that is going to sit there and be an appropriate system for that colony that has variables through a winter that has variables. And yet the wintering system, the amount of insulation, the amount of ventilation, all these kind of things, the system is static in an infinitely variable environment, which is madness, really.
Yep.
But that's what we do, and you have to figure that out and somehow predict.
Well, the variables is what I talk about a lot too when I talk to different groups, and I always talk about those. And there's so many variables. There's only a few absolutes, and those few absolutes are usually basic bee biology. And the only thing to know is the basic bee biology is the only thing you can mitigate any of the absolute variables with, and it's hard because the variables change so often on you, and you're exactly right. And we said it, Joy and I've said it, in the last 5 years, we haven't had a season that's been the same yet. And it's throwing us for a loop every time you turn around.
There are no normals in climate. There are only averages. There are only averages, right? If you're looking for normal, you're never going to find it because there's only averages.
Yeah.
Like this year, Mike has always talked about how our flow starts picking up in the spring, and all of a sudden we get that like a 2-week break, nothing's coming in. Bees are already loading up with brood, and all of a sudden there's nothing coming in, and they start getting hungry. We've always, and that's never failed, has it, Mike?
No, it's always the same.
It does it every time. But what's happened here lately, this year, we've had a 2-week break in between every float.
Mm-hmm.
In between every float, they've usually kind of cross over a little bit.
Yeah, never seen that.
Yep.
You need to go get your honey. They'll eat it all on you.
Oh yeah, they will too. Don't think they. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I've had that happen.
Yeah, I'm worried about a lot of folks doing that. I see a lot of posts on YouTube about when should I pull my honey? When should I pull my honey? I'm gonna wait till the end of August. Like, you ain't gonna have nothing left by the end of August.
When it's pullable.
Yeah.
Hey, look, it's not capped. I can't pull it. Oh yeah, you can. I pulled a bunch up the other day, buddy. I put it under fans because if I don't, they're gonna eat it.
Yeah, don't get me started on that. I love uncapped honey.
Mm.
You can
It
fly
dries
through the
faster.
extraction process.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I get that. I got some today. I looked at it. I had a frame of half and half, and the cap stuff was sitting at 16.5%, and the
Oh, yeah.
uncapped after being under fans was sitting at right about 14, 15, which
Nice.
is almost too dry when you get to 14. But hey,
Mm.
it's drier than the cap stuff because of the fan. So yeah, I'm
Especially because you're selling that stuff by the pound. So you know
yeah,
you want to sell the water.
Mm.
exactly. So
Yeah,
exactly.
we have to use the uncapped honey to pull down the moisture in the capped when we get later in the year. Have to mix it.
That's a good problem.
It works. It works out
Yeah.
good.
Oh, it averages out.
Yeah, it does.
Well,
It does.
We've had a debate recently on Facebook with people. Some people talking about when to pull their honey. There's been some people complaining that we pull our honey too late. I'm going to wait through July this year to pull all my honey. I pulled at the end of June last year, and there's been some people on there that we're not doing the bees right. We're taking too much honey away from the bees. So that's one of the debates that's going on right now. Is no, you don't need to. They pull honey at like the 1st of June or middle of June and let the bees keep the rest of that honey instead of feeding back sugar water. So that's kind of a big debate on our local Facebook page around here is when to pull the honey and what's best for the bees and all that. So that's one of those situations.
That's one of those things where you go back, like Keith was saying earlier, man, you can do what you need to do. We need to do what we need to do. And I always tell people, what's your end game? What is your end game? Or do you just love having bees and watching them drink coffee in the morning, watch them fly, and you want to pollinate your garden? Then don't pull your honey. Don't worry about it. But if you're needing to make your money and you're living on it and you're a honey producer, it's all about your end game. Then you pull your honey and you feed them back.
Well, I'm okay. I'm okay with you doing that, with you leaving the honey for the bees, but it's almost like, oh, you're a terrible person.
Right. They think you're a horrible person.
Yeah.
You're awful.
You're
You're destroying your bees. You're punishing them. You're taking your food.
Well,
They are here, and we have dominion over these. We were given that dominion, that creation, and I'm a steward. I want to be a good steward of my bees, and I don't want to. Just like animals, I'm not a huge animal fan, but I'm not going to be cruel to animals, But hey, the bees, they're here to. I just gave a little presentation to some 2 and 3 year olds. No, some 3 through 7 year olds at this camp. My wife,
that was fun.
Teacher. Yeah, well, she helped me. So we're talking to them, and I was trying to explain to them that, hey, these bees were put here for us, not to rob them blind of every single drop of honey they got necessarily, right? Okay, I get that, but they were here to feed us, to help with our food, to pollinate our food, to feed us, even though they're not, they're invasive to our continent. Honestly, let's think about that. But other pollinators, they were all put here for that reason. So you know what? They'll be all right if we take their honey and give them sugar water if we're making a lot of honey. And if you want to leave money, what's your end game? It ain't mine.
Yeah. Well, I tell folks that you ask them, well, what is a honeybee's favorite thing to do? Gathering nectar and making honey. So with me pulling honey, I'm just getting it out of the way so they can make more.
Do more.
That's right.
Do what they love.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
There you go.
I'm helping them.
Well,
it's like sled dogs, man. Sled dogs, they want to run, and people think they're
Exactly.
they're on chains and all that, but them sled dogs want to go, and they love it.
If they didn't want to do it, they'd lay down.
Yeah.
We used to say that about fox
barking.
hunting. Anytime that fox gets tired of running from them hound dogs, he's going to hit a hole.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to see when your bees are, I don't want to put human emotions on them, but if you take a hive where they're all piled up on the landing board and on the front of the hive and all the foragers at home because there's nothing to do, versus when you got a nice flow going on and all the foragers are out gathering nectar, which is the most friendly hive to get in?
Yeah. What is the happier bees?
Which are the happiest bees? So,
I have something different that I can answer, because it's pretty common for newer beekeeper to, I'm going to leave honey for them in the fall, because I'm a better person than you are. And the thing is, you can have that conversation with them and say, okay, well, keep my phone number because I'll have some nukes to sell you in the spring because your bees are going to be dead by spring. In our extended winter with no flight, they die. They just die. You can't leave the honey for them for 5 months sequestered and not taking a poop. It doesn't work that way. So that's kind of one of the situations around here. Is sucrose is the deal. That'll get them through the winter.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's been proven by some of the top scientific minds around.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob talks about that in his 4-part series. And I tell people when they talk about feeding, because I always talk about feeding, like outside of starvation, right? Outside of just that, feeding is a tool. It is a tool to be used for the bees, depending on the operation. And so the guy wanting to make a lot of bees or get ready for pollination, he's feeding. And I always tell him, go to that 4-part series of Bob Benny's. He did it years ago, not his newest feeding video. And he talked about the sucrose studies. Now, I was on a live chat with Mike Palmer, and I'm not down on Mike Palmer at all because he's a lot smarter than me with bees. I can tell you that now. Michael Palmer is way smarter than I am. But boy, he got lit up when he said, that's just the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. Sucrose is better. Well, there's been studies, and I'll tell you who else talks about it. Dr. David Peck talks about it. And it is a for their gut health through the winter, it's a better substitute for feed. And Bob names all the scientists that you can read up on, and I'm sure you know them too, Brad. But
Well, our home expert here, Dr. Curry, did a lot of that research.
Okay.
And you could see some of that. There's a YouTube video on, I forget which channel now, where he presented that work. And and it's a long study because you got to feed them such and such and then see how they winter, that kind of thing. So it's years that they did those studies. And sucrose is king. That's a quote. Sucrose is king. And one of the reasons, and you go for different kinds of feed too. A lot of times people get syrup out of a tanker or something like that. And I totally get that if you're a larger beekeeper, but I love buying the bags of sugar out of the store because it's fit for human consumption, and that's a completely different level than animal feed, right? And so I'm quite assured of the quality of that feed when I get it home. The only person that can mess it up is me. And I'm not saying I don't mess it up from time to time, but keep your containers clean and that sort of thing. But that's what I really like about using the sugar out of the bag is it's human consumption grade stuff. It's traceable.
Yeah, that's a good debate. It goes on in all the chats, and you're never going to.
And I don't have a problem with anybody feeding their bees whatever they want to feed them, but a lot of people want to turn it into a character issue. If they have no more data and insight on the topic, so they turn it into a personal attack, and that's just admission of losing the debate as far as I'm concerned.
Well, they take a human aspect toward the insect is what they do. They
anthropomorphized.
That big word. That's a great word.
Yeah, that's what they do.
But it's so true. It's so true. They think they've got a box full of little mammals.
Right, exactly. And it's not. It's like I heard a guy, you feed them like livestock. No, it's a tool. You use it at certain times, and like you talking about the sucrose and the feeding and what you feed. Hey, we down here we've got 3-month winter where they're flying half the time anyway. Gut health usually not too much of an issue. So I leave them their honey, so I don't have to feed. But I'm also not sitting in winter in a shed for 6 or 8 months with these things having to try and eat on that stuff, and then their guts going all downhill. And then, man, your hives this year, I was just blown away at what yours looked like this year, Brad, coming out that shed. Like, we would never see anything unless we got a really bad off hive, because our winters,
you mean the poopy?
Yeah, gosh, that was something.
I've got a poopy problem, and it's worse than it should be. I think I'm still.
And I heard what you said. One of the reasons you thought it was, but yeah, that's crazy.
What did I say? I thought it was.
Well, you were talking about putting that
I'm-
fondant on in January to where they were
oh,
consuming,
that fondant thing. Yeah, I think that was a big
consuming
mistake.
that, and
Yeah,
in that not helping their guts now.
yeah. It's got to
You know.
be pure. It's got to be clean. Any ash, any solids in that at all is just a bad deal. And I think
Larry,
I'm done with the outdoor experiment too.
Larry
I
Moore's
hope
got
so.
a question. I don't know who he was asking. He might have been asking some of us. Do you pull your honey off the sides of the brood nest too? Sometimes I have. If I got a cleaner looking, prettier frame that's capped, like that outside frame in the top brood box, and I got one that's an older comb or whatever, might have had a little brood in it one time, or just maybe not ready to pull, I may swap them around. Take that one.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that as long as I'm certain that it's not leftover syrup feed.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I had to do quite a bit of that this year. I've talked about it in several chats. I had a heck of a time. My hives, as well as the ones that I help folks look after, plugging out the brood box with nectar. So it works out good for me running all mediums. It's real easy to pull frames up into the supers. But I had to do a lot of that. The Lord knows you can't pull all of it. You got to leave the ladies something to eat, because a lot of the frames that are close to the brood, it's pollen and nectar. But yeah, I've seen a lot of that this year, and I've pulled them up. I mean, you got no choice. You got to have somewhere for the queen to lay. So options kind of limited.
I run double deeps, and I've pulled some of those outside frames just to have room for the queen to lay. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't have any choice. They put so much. They packed her in. They left her like 2 or 3 frames in the middle
Oh
to
yeah,
lay eggs in, and the rest of it's full of honey. You gotta do something. I mean, you can't leave them like it.
yeah. A lot of the hives I looked in, when you first looked at them, you thought your queen was failing because you had some spotty brood and different things going on. But man, it wasn't the queen's fault that they filled up every hole. So
Yeah.
you put some comb in there, or you just swap them out of a super. I'll pull them down out of the super and put them in the brood box. I don't really like to do that, but you end up having to do it. But and the queen will take off, and here you got all these beautiful frames of brood on this beautiful comb.
Aren't they gorgeous?
Yeah, you wish there was honey in instead of a brood, but yeah, it does make a beautiful that beige color brood. So
That's the beauty of running deeps right there. And not just deeps, but consistent size. I know a beekeeper near me. She runs all mediums, so medium brood chamber. She'll run double medium brood chamber, and then medium supers. So all her frames the same size. So that's the beauty. You could just move frames back and forth as you need.
Yep. Yeah, Keith asking another question there about what's the highest moisture you've seen on a capped honey frame.
Mine's 19 here with tallow. Tallow can be about 19.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen 19 or 20.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen this high. Have you ever seen the honey ferment under the caps
Yeah,
when it gets
I've
bubbly?
never seen that.
I had a bunch of it last year.
I had it.
Was
for
it
the
last
first
year or
time
year
I had it
before?
last year.
Wow.
The year before, I had an entire super full of it, and I
Yeah.
just took the super out and fed it back because I'm like,
I'd never seen that before. When you pull it
No.
out, it's just weird looking.
What was the moisture content? Was the moisture content high or
Yeah, it was on mine.
It's probably the yeast.
Okay.
Yeah, probably moisture
Well,
and yeast together.
Yeah, combination.
Because that's what I was getting at. Because this whole 18% magic number, that's not a thing, because it's a relative number, commensurate with what kind of nectar it is and how much yeasts are in the nectar and all kinds of stuff. 18 is just kind of a fairly consistently safe number. So I'm thinking if you had an 18% honey and it fermented, that it might just have really high yeast content.
Well,
Yeah.
some of the stuff coming in last year obviously was in the year before because it came in at a certain time, and now I have a whole box of it. So I took the stuff out to a wildlife management area and let the bees out there eat it, and it was all bubbling up, a whole box of it. So they got into something that was a high yeast content.
Yeah,
because it was all capped out already. So they had the moisture down to what they thought it needed to be, but obviously whatever that nectar was, that was a high yeast content. That's why you heat creamed honey. That's why Dice did what he did with creamed honey.
Yep.
It was to get rid of the crystal, sure, but really his main
Kill the yeast.
reason was to kill the yeast, because when you crystallize honey, which you do with creamed honey, you create moisture, but the water separates. That's how the crystals begin to get made. Now you have free water, just like you do when you analyze aggregate. Now you have that free water. It's got a high yeast content. Guess what? You're getting ready to blow the lids off of every one of those creamed honeys.
Yeah,
Not that you have to. I don't do mine, but I also, just hope for the best. But I know my nectar.
Well, I've been keeping up with my moisture in 3 pools, and every pool has got a little bit higher. The first one was like 15, and the last one was 17.
Because you're getting into the tallow now.
Yeah, you get
blackberry
later
into
in the season. The later it gets, the wetter it is.
Yeah. Well, Brad, bouncing back to our topic a little bit, how do you kind of decide, the new products that come along, whether it's a new kind of hive, a new tool, a new mite treatment? We kind of went around the horn earlier. A lot of us kind of just, I think when I asked about what do you do on that bumpy road, and I think the consensus was we just kind of pull over and watch other people bounce along. So
Yeah, I'll just give a little sidebar to that. I remember when I kind of switched from the more of a hobby situation to trying to make this paying proposition. It was an interesting scenario when it came to looking at something that I might want to buy or invest in, because when I'm a hobbyist, the cost of whatever I'm looking at doesn't factor into the bottom line. It doesn't matter. It's a hobby, right? However, when I'm a business now, it pretty well has to factor into the bottom line. However, now I can justify buying, investing in more capital equipment, a $2,000 hive lifter, for example, right? I didn't think about that for more than 3 seconds, and I was handing Boris my money, right? Because that's a piece of capital equipment that I know is going to impact my workload, in a positive way going forward. If I'm a hobbyist, I might look at that and think, oh, gee, that's a lot of scratch, right? So that was an interesting dynamic. But, when something comes down the pipe, I have to evaluate that and see, do I approach that with an existing need? Have I identified a need in my business or my apiary? Do I have a need? Because sometimes I might have a need and I'll just be on the lookout for solutions for that. So sometimes that puzzle piece comes down the pipe and you say, hey, that's a solution for this thing that I've needed for the last while. So there's that. But then there's stuff that doesn't fall into any of those needs. And, somebody trying to convince me it's a better way, or, a better treatment is often what it is. There's all kinds of snake oil, feed supplements, treatments, oh, your bees will look good, all this kind of stuff. And I'm not against any of that, because I know there's some value in some of that, but I'm very cautious. And I'm always looking for, at the very least, anecdotal, look at my peers and say, have you tried this? Do you know what this stuff does? So that's just kind of in a nutshell how I approach it. And being that I'm trying to make a living at this, I'm trying to make a profitable business. Yeah, if it's not going to increase my bottom line, then it's like, that's just thrown out the window.
You kind of stole my thunder on that, Keith, because I was going to say something similar as we went along about something Brad mentioned, and it goes along with what we were talking about before. When this new technology and stuff comes out, I'm not talking about treatments, I'm talking about gadgets now, or new things. And there's one in particular, I saw a comment fly through that reminded me, and then Brad said what he said is, when I was evaluating it, it's neat and it's shiny, and when you talk about it, it's cool. And when you're a YouTube creator and somebody sends it to you for free, it's really cool now, because now you can sit there. But I'm that guy that you send me, I don't, first of all, accept a lot of stuff for free because I'll look at it and go, look, you don't want me to review it because if I don't need it, I'm gonna, don't do that.
You're going to get the truth no matter what, so be
That's right.
careful.
Because I've seen a ton of people get free stuff, and Randy McCaffrey told me, Dirt Brewster told me about this, and I tell you who else, Bruce Alligator Man's one that really got me on board with reviewing stuff and saying, look, he had a stove one time, and if he couldn't stand on it. Bruce is kind of a round guy, and he couldn't stand on it, and he said, nope, I won't put my name on it. But this particular item gets to me, and I'm like, sure, I'll try it. I already talked to the guy at the expo. I already said, look, I'm gonna be doing like 70 inspections a week, 70 to 80. Well, most people don't. I said I only got 60 or 80 hives. If I'm in them once a week, different yards, it's gonna cost me this, and this. So finally, I get it and I try it. And my thing is, the first thing I got to know with a product, if it's a new product that's coming out, it's a new gadget. First thing I feel like I need to think about, is there a need in my apiary for it? Do I have a need for that? Now, I'm talking about a want, a need, because it's going to cost me money. And I'm not even on the side of Brad on that. It's kind of a hobby, but it's kind of a sideliner for me. So, money, got a bottom line there. And is there a problem that it's solving? That's the other question. I sell oil, synthetic oil. And that's one of the things we always do when we go to commercial accounts. Is there a problem we can solve with this? Because if I'm presenting you with something that you don't have a problem with, how am I bringing you something that you're going to buy that's not even solving any of your problems, that's not helping you? So do you have a need? Is it going to solve a problem? And what's the market for it? Like, where, as far as the price and all that, where does that fit into my bottom line that if I buy this total package for $300, man, look, that's 2/3 of one of those nice new mini pumps that John just came out with.
I'm sure looking at that thing too.
Well, you can come check. I got one in my shed. You can come try if you want. And,
You got the mini?
Yeah.
I got the mini. But what I'm saying is you gotta evaluate these things, and when we're new, we're so quick to go, wow, everybody on YouTube just said they're using this. The Demeray split's the best split ever. The Demeray split makes the most honey, and they don't swarm. Demeray. We all go to Demeray, and all of a sudden the Demeray fails on you, and you're sitting there going, well, what happened? I did it just like they said. You gotta evaluate stuff, man. You gotta, or you're on the cliff again. Pinnacle. It depends, man. Just it's not that all stuff is bad. You just got to really see where it fits in.
And Keith mentioned, in your question there, Keith, you mentioned a new kind of a hive, for example, because there's a lot of those out there. And again, when I see these new, different kinds of hives around, that's the first question. Like, what problem with that? I don't discount it because it's different. I do look at it and say, okay, picture myself using this equipment. What problem is it solving for me? And usually the answer is no problem. I don't have any of the problems that this thing is supposed to solve. I'm starting to use more polystyrene hives. Is it because I love paying 3 times as much for my super hive body or for my hive bodies? No, I don't like paying 3 times as much for my hive bodies, but I have seen the difference in insulated hive bodies with the bees. The bees do better in an insulated hive body in my climate for sure. And so it's just something I believe in, and I'm going to be using them more in the future.
I've got to see. I look for an advantage. I don't mind spending more money, and I don't live where Brad does, so I can understand how that would help him. But I've got to see somebody getting an advantage. I'm okay with spending more money if I can see the advantage of it. But if you're gonna, spend 50 where I spend 20, and we still make the same amount of honey, I'm probably not gonna spend the extra $30. I mean, I've got to see the advantage before I'm gonna, take on something new like that. I've got to see an increase. Yeah. And there's a lot of things people do that, while they don't hurt anything, that it's time and money for everybody else that doesn't do it makes the same amount of honey. So I can't see doing it if there's not an advantage to it.
And with insulated hive bodies, the problem it's solving for me is coming out of winter, right? My bees have been sitting, and I'll talk 40F. See, I know how. In my building all winter, They come out, and now the daytime highs may be between 40 and 50 F, but it also could be below freezing, quite a good margin at night. So that insulated hive body then gives me that margin in the spring mostly is the biggest advantage there. I've always wanted to have some kind of an insulated wrap in the spring, and a lot of beekeepers around here, commercial beekeepers, have spring wraps. They bring them out of the building in the spring, and then they put this wrap on them to keep them warm for the month of April, the month of March, the month of April, depending on when they bring them out. So that's the problem that it's solving for me. But the insulation is an advantage to the bees, hot or cold. Even on hot days, the insulation is an advantage
That's right. That's
to the
right.
bees. It doesn't. People ask me about keeping them warm on a hot day. Insulation does not keep things hot. It doesn't keep things warm. Like it decouples thermal zones, so it'll keep it as cool as it'll keep it warm, depending on what
Yeah.
kind of a temperature you're
Keeps
I
dealing
like
with.
what Troy said about that, though. Troy,
Yeah,
what you said, will it give me an advantage? Will it be is there an advantage to this? That's kind of going along with what I said. Man, that's a mouthful right there, because I didn't get on the wax dip train for a long time, and I just didn't want to spend the money. And for somebody else, it may not be worth the money. But then I look at my time and not that I'm not healthy, but how lazy I want to be. And I go, I hate painting. I hate it. Like, I hate painting more than I hate woodworking. Like, and I hate those
it's
both
way
more than I hate
cheaper than
mosquitoes.
painting.
And right. So I turn around, and now for me, it's worth the money because I save so much time, and time is money. Well, that's an advantage for me now, because now I don't paint boxes and assemble them. I have them all wax dipped. I buy them and I pay more, and they're going to last 3-4 times as long. I replace them one and done. Is that an advantage to me? Yeah, because now I got more time, and I'm
You can run 10 more colonies.
You're exactly right, and I'm not going to, but you could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
no,
and
that's a mouthful.
but,
Advantage. That's a word I was.
but that's the kind of the trap is buying convenience. Oh, this is going to save me time. This is going to save me work, right? But you always have to remember when in my world, in trying to make this a business, I can look at that and say, this is going to save me time. But what else is going to fill that time slot? Not sitting in front of the TV, right? It's going to be doing something else. It's going to be running another 2 or 3 colonies, or another 5 or 10 colonies.
Right.
It's going to be
at the business level. Yes, absolutely.
you can't just take that time off. You have to
I
fill
can,
that time with something else.
See, I can, because I'm
Yeah.
retired.
That's
No, I
kind
know
of
what you mean.
That's kind of the discipline part that I have to keep
Yeah.
telling myself. Oh, that'll save me time. Okay, but
Right.
it's not time off now. It's time doing something else.
No, you're exactly right. I saw somebody else talk about that too, and it's like, okay, and his was a business like yours, and which mine's a business, but I mean, you're making a livelihood of it. And he said, look, I can do this by saving this time. I tell you who talked about it was tell me, Keith, Nathan Coleman, Duck River Hunting. He talked about it because he's a real smart guy when it comes to that kind of stuff. And he did, his degree is in agribusiness type stuff. And he said, look, I can spend all this time doing this, or I can take that time, and now this time allows me this, which in the bottom line brings in more, because time is money in business for sure. Now I can fill that time for, this side of the business. Or I can buy this investment for the business, because over the next 20 years, I'm not buying another 1,000 boxes. So it really, you're right. It's a trade-off, especially for me. I'm retired. Hey, I can go sit and watch TV now.
Hey, speaking of Nathan, did you see that slab he poured?
God, is that huge?
Holy-
He's building an apartment building. What's he building?
That's all like a roller skating ring or something.
Yeah, it's gonna be. Yeah, he's serious, man. I remember when he first. I was sitting with him at one of the expos, and we were sitting at that table. It had to be the first time in Kentucky, and we were sitting at a table talking. It was just he and I, and he was talking about how this worked out with why he went full on beekeeping. And it's a pretty interesting story, but he was serious and he looked at me and he, this guy is a calculating, very smart, calculating fella. And you can tell when you talk to him and he has it worked out. And this business is going to be something. I told him, don't forget the little people. I'm going to come visit you one day.
When I retired, I thought, I can go ahead and try all these other things, raising queens and doing stuff and, doing all the extra stuff. But even when you're retired, there's only a certain number of hours in a day. And one thing that you do takes away from another thing that you do. So you really got to be, I had to quit with the queen raising so much. I was doing a lot more queen raising than I am now, just to try to get my numbers increased to where I want them to be. And then I can go back to some of that. But even when you're retired, there's only so many. I can't do everything all the time. You still got to allocate your time.
Yeah. And time, a lot of folks, time is money. When I'm retired, now that I'm retired, no, not really as much so as it used to be, maybe, because I enjoy beekeeping. I'd be doing it even if I wasn't making honey money.
Yeah.
Maybe not on this scale, but I'd still be messing with bees because I enjoy it. But it's been interesting as the conversation is going on, watching the chat over here, just talking about the different kinds of hives, and making sure that what you're about to purchase is fixing a problem. And, and looking at the chat, apparently for several folks, those plastic hives have fixed something, or those insulated hives.
Mm-hmm.
They had several things here. They're using less resources in the winter. They're overwintering better. That's great. That's the way it's supposed to work. You buy a new product to fix a problem. So, or to make things better. I guess the problem you get into is, well, it goes back to what I said earlier. You're free to do whatever you want to. I mean, when I was a younger fella, I always wanted shiny, fast cars. Did I need shiny, fast cars? No. Did they solve a problem? No, they created one. But I could afford it and I wanted them. So I did it. Beekeeping is the same way. Nobody's telling you not to go for it, but it just goes back to you don't got to do it that way.
And there's a trap in there too, Keith. It's that if you want the shiny fast car, it's okay to go and get the shiny fast car. Just don't lie to yourself and tell yourself that you need it for some reason.
Yeah, I need
that goes the same.
Yeah.
What's that?
I need that car.
Yeah, and it goes the same in business. It's fine if I want, like, I'm a hive tool snob. You know that, right? And do I need a $50 hive tool? No, I don't. I want a $50 hive tool. It's okay, right? I like the feel of it. I like the way I can work with it. It doesn't. I don't wear gloves, so that's part of my problem. I don't wear gloves, so it doesn't insulate my hand from a crappy hive tool. And even in anything else, if you want to, I have $100 round veil that I wear. Do I need that? No, I want that.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to lie to myself and say, well, so,
Right.
Make some line that I needed that, right? Well, I got a medical condition that it's whatever. No, that's the one I wanted. So that's the one because I wear it a lot. Like, I'm in that veil a lot. So I wanted exactly the veil that, that I felt was the best for me.
That's a fine line between need and want too sometimes. And I say that not jokingly, but there can be a fine line. It's like my little assembly line I got built up now last year. I could have continued just doing filter strainers and all that stuff. But did I need to get the clarifying tank and the pump and now the float switches and everything? Did I have to do that? Well, for me, I said, well, I don't need to. I could keep working super hard. But at the same time, I've got more time now to actually go out and take care of other things in the bee yard now that I've done that. I was able to come tonight because I'm not still cleaning the honey house because I cut my time in half. So I don't have to have it, but at the same time, I want that time back. I don't need that time back, but I wanted that time back. So it's kind of tricky situation whether you're telling yourself or not. But you're right. I could tell myself a lot of things, but this right here, when my back was actually able to stretch and move still after today and knocking out, all those supers in 3 or 4 hours, and now I can walk straight still and all that. I think it was a need, health wise anyway.
And that's the trick that I'm talking about. It's the the devil and the angel here, right?
Yeah.
Having the conversation about what you need and what you don't need. It's being honest with yourself and having those objective conversations with yourself and saying, is this a need or is this a want? If it's a want and you can, if you can afford it, and it's okay, but don't call it a need if
That's
it's
right.
really a want, because that's a dangerous slippery slope, because then you're going to need a lot of stuff if you start down that road, if you can't ever differentiate and tell the difference.
That's right.
Yep. Well, hello, Norman.
Keith, real quick, you were talking about the polyhive. Let's see what his channel is. The Boone County Beekeeper. He did a video a couple of weeks ago on different polyhives, and he did a pretty fair comparison of the three. I think he had 3 different types. You seen it yet, Mike?
Nah, Tim, I haven't watched Tim this week.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty fair assessment of what he did. So y'all go watch that. The Boone County Beekeeper. He had all 3 on the rails right there, talking about his likes and dislikes on the different ones. That's all I got.
I'd love to be able to have a full Apamay yard, to be honest with you. I love those things. They're really nice hives, but I'm too far in where I'm at now. If I could start out and be like Stan Gore and have 120 of them, I'd love it. But it's not. I'm not there right now.
I would only want 25.
Yeah.
Still trying to get 25.
That brings up a good point on, that's something that Fred Dunn always talks about. You're free to try all this stuff in your yard, but if you got 20 hives, whatever you're going to try, don't do it to all 20 of them.
That's right.
Do it to a handful, so you got a comparison to see if it actually did anything.
3 to 7.
Yeah. So how you doing, Norman? It sounded like you had a unhappy dog there. I think that was a dog.
No, it's amazing how the microphone picks up chickens.
That was a chicken.
They can be like halfway across the property, and the microphone.
That was a Canadian chicken, as in like Canadian goose.
Okay, that's why I didn't recognize.
They are Canadian chickens.
It was French.
They are especially. You know what, Keith? You are correct. They are especially designed French breed of chickens. They're designed for the cold of the Quebecois. I'm on the other coast, but yeah, we have a Chanticleer chickens. They're white, and they don't have combs or wattles.
That's interesting.
And if they don't have combs or wattles, they won't get frostbite. Anyways, thanks for bringing me up here. Appreciate that, and it's nice to be on a panel with such esteemed folk. And Brad, I have one question for you. What does a $50 hive tool feel like?
Oh, it's joyful. Well, and again, part of the reason I'm a hive tool snob is I never wear gloves. So I guess you could say I have an intimate connection with my hive tool. The cheap hive tools, they hurt my hands. They're sharp. I've cut myself on those things. They're just not pleasurable to use, and they bend. $50 hive tool. It doesn't bend. It's like a piece of spring steel out of your car. It's nice, and I didn't realize when I bought it how much lighter it is than my other hive tools until I used it for a day, and then I just realized that carrying it around for the entire day, this is actually quite a bit lighter. I could kind of feel that at the end of the day that I wasn't carrying around this heavy hive tool.
I know, Keith, you can probably relate to this. Keith, you relate to the old days of when you get the cheap wrenches and the cheap ratchets and everything versus the quality Mac or Snap-on back in the day. Now, that was one of the things those salesmen would always tell you is, of course, we didn't say the word ergonomics back then, but they were ergonomically better. There's a difference in a high dollar wrench versus a cheap drop forged in China wrench.
Oh yeah. Your
For a
knuckles.
mechanic that does it all day.
Yeah, your knuckles will thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you got to be
Same with
careful
that.
on the Chinese stuff because sometimes you get gold. The first set of ratcheting wrenches I bought from China, and this is 20 years ago. I'm in like basically the equivalent. I was in a Princess Auto, which is like basically Harbor Freight. And this is like the first time I ever saw ratcheting wrenches, like other than like Snap-on. Oh, okay, I'll buy those. And I still have these wrenches. They're fantastic. I've had so many other ratcheting wrenches since then, but that's the thing with China. It's like it's either gold or it's garbage.
So, Norman, you can look on Dancing Bee. I don't know if Dancing Bee or Dancing Bee Manitoba, I know for sure. Look on their website, and you can see the Bartell Bee Company hive tool. If you want one of your own, you can probably order it from there.
The thing that scares me is like, I buy my hive tools in bulk at this point in my life because I keep leaving them I've only lost one.
Well, you won't lose
I
it.
got 5 on the go.
You won't lose it. You'll know exactly where it is at all
I
times.
never have more than 2 at a time. Though.
You know what I find?
If
If I have one of something, I never lose it. If I have 4 of something, I never know where it is.
I need a hive
Tell you
too
what,
that I
your
can
wife-
connect to my Pi.
That's very true, Brad.
Because I'm not careful. I'm not careful, and I'm not mindful of where it is at any given time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like that with my keys until I lent my keys to my wife, and now she lost those keys. So now I'm like stuck with all these other random sets of keys that aren't mine.
I don't see it on Manitoba's website, Brad.
Let me look, Mike.
So Norman, I'll throw the same question at you that we've all been talking about.
Okay.
About the latest and greatest technologies that coming along for beekeepers, whether it's techniques, equipment, mite treatments, whatever. How do you navigate that bumpy road of the pinnacle versus the cliff?
Well, as far as like Cadillacs of things, it's the Instavate by far is the greatest thing since sliced bread. But other than that, it's like I'm really cheap, and I tend to build all my own stuff. So it's just different things that I'm building that I'm like, oh yeah, that was kind of cool. It's like this week I built, I've been kind of whining and moaning about trying to get these styrofoam nukes, or they like the mini nukes, trying to get them going. So I actually went out and I built a box that I could put 30 of the frames in there to get them started in a proper hive. So I'm excited about that. So that might be that's my answer. Not the Instavap. It's my new box that I made that I can put a bunch of styrofoam nuke frames in.
But as far as some of the new stuff coming down the pipe, how do you decide what you're going to try and what you're going to kind of stand by and see how it works for others? Do you find yourself making that decision a lot?
Link in the chat, Mike.
Okay, yeah, I just found it actually. I just texted you.
Well, as far as that,
Yep.
I'm not buying things. Like it's being where I'm at in Western Canada, it's shipping's insane and taxes and all that. So it's like unless it's really proven and people are really excited. Oh, I gotta go hunting. See you guys later.
Wow.
Hey,
What do you say? He's got to go what?
got a fox in the hen house or something.
Oh, he said you got to go hunting.
I think that's what he said.
Oh, Lord. Well, take the camera with you.
Really?
Where'd Joey go?
Yeah, we lost Joey too. Maybe it was Joey in the hen house.
Go getting his chickens.
Yeah. He wanted to get some of that French chicken.
There's some things that come along that maybe work and maybe don't, but there's some things that people try that they're not going to work. But like I said before, you just got to let them try. We had one guy a long time ago that he had 5 hives, and he was going to sell honey, sell nukes, and raise queens with 5 hives. And you couldn't convince him that that wasn't going to happen. But some things you just, people are just going to, that's what they're going to do. Another thing a lot of people do is they'll go from 5 hives to 500, and that doesn't usually work out well either. So there's some things that's not going to work no matter what they do. But it's the stuff, there's some stuff that maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, that we ride the fence on, I think.
Yeah,
That was the most common advice. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Brian.
Just going to say the most common advice that I was given when I started from experienced beekeepers was don't grow too fast. Right. That was a very common advice that I was given. I think it's sage advice too.
Yeah. For a multitude of reasons, not just for a single one or two. It's
multitude.
A multitude.
Well, grow big, crash big, right? I've seen it happen too.
But
You got to
You
learn
grow
to
really
scale.
big in
You
2
gotta
years,
scale.
and then
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's more to it, and not that I'm in a business necessarily, but even my little operation, I just scaled it slow and steady. I had the opportunity to. I had the luxury of doing that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying everybody has that luxury. Some people will maybe have to go into some debt and things like that. I'm not saying that, but I scaled it slow to where by the 4th, no, I take that back, 4th year YouTube. So yeah, so then about the 8th year, that was we've been running in the black ever since, We get the one purchase we invest in the one thing we know is going to save us time. We pay it off before the halfway point of the season kind of deal. Season's bad that year. Okay, we had a slush fund ready. You got to scale it. You got to scale it slow. Some people, they understand it and they can scale it a lot faster, but they educate themselves on doing it. They know what they're going to do and how they're going to do it.
Oh, is that Mike or me?
It's the ones that see how easy it is to propagate bees and they blow up and then they can't.
Yeah.
They can't handle it.
I found it difficult my first few years growing my bee operation. I don't have a problem growing at all myself personally, but the bee operation that I would have, maybe I would have 50 colonies, right? And then I would think, okay, I want to keep making my operation bigger. So the next year I want 100 colonies, right? So then I need to make bees in year 1. I need to make all these bees, buy and build all this equipment in year 1 to build up to 100 colonies. Well, now I have to get those bees through the summer, through the winter, and the entire summer so that they can make me a crop of honey that I can spend the next year selling. So my expansion cost was 18 to 24 months ahead of my revenue from that expansion. And I was doing that probably for about 5 years. I was always 18 to 24 months behind my revenue with my capital expenditure. And it was really difficult to keep up with that year after year. It was hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it does happen quite a bit because you find out you can make splits, and especially if you buy queens, you can split and roll, and here we go. We go from 5 to 10, 20, 40, 60 hives, but then winter comes along, and all at once it goes the other way, 60, 40, 20, 10.
That's right.
And
you can only do so much with all them old comb that come out of them hives when they die out.
Yeah, you don't need but so many swarm boxes.
Yeah, you'd seen when we did I bought those packages, that was a calculated expenditure. You know, I looked and said, okay, I've sold these nukes. That'll cover the packages. And it says, well, why would, if you can make nukes, why would you sell nukes to buy packages? Well, I can grow those packages a certain way, different than I can grow a nuke, to where I can scale them at a time frame where they're not going to work me to death, swarming out on me when the tallow hits and the nuke is all of a sudden exploding on me. So and they're less, they cost less, and things like that, to where I know in 2 years I can have this many on pallets, calculating a 30% loss as well, and say, and you know, hope that's the loss. And you know, okay, here's what I'm spending, here's what I'm making, here's what I can make in 2 years. That's kind of how I scaled up and keep from going in debt, you know, too much.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's certainly easy to do that when you try to roll too quick.
I remember my mentor telling me early on, grow your operation into your equipment. Your apiary is as big as the number of boxes you have, right? Because you can't grow more bees than that, and you know, you don't borrow money to buy bees, because bees die, right? Boxes, bottom boards, covers, all of your equipment. That's an asset. You know, worst comes to worst, you can sell your asset, but the bees are going to die. So the bees need to be paid for or homegrown. And I remember him telling me that specifically, grow into the equipment that you have. So that's when my mindset said, okay, in order to grow my operation, it's actually growing my equipment inventory. So that's kind of,
you spoke that on a video one time. You did that on a video one time. You talked about that.
Did I talk about that on a video?
It stuck with me.
Well, it stuck with me too. It was a long time ago.
I guess the equipment thing would probably be this question I put up on the chat. The first 5 years of beekeeping, what was the hardest challenge?
Figuring out where to buy bottles from. That was mine.
Buying bottles. Having enough equipment was tough for me. No matter how much you bought, it wasn't enough. You know, between growing and catching swarms and figuring out how things work and playing with them, and your splits actually worked, and yeah, you never had enough equipment.
Mine was the influx of information that I got after year 3. The influx of information. And because it's funny, he asked 5 years. That's about the perfect time frame, because about 5 years in is when it was probably about year 6, I hit a reset and said, this is ridiculous. I had so much, just so we were talking about. And that's where I learned to just sit back and watch, because the influx of information had me so confused on why I'm doing this, why I'm doing that. I finally just did a reset, went back to basic bee biology, and said, I'm starting with what the book said again, because I had gotten myself advanced further than I needed to go. And that was mine.
Mine was figuring out who to listen to.
Yeah.
I would go to bee club meetings and listen to these guys. And there was one guy there that said week after week, I've never lost a hive. I've never lost a hive. I've never lost a hive. That's the guy to listen to. So I did for about 2 years before I figured out he had no up in the hole ground. And it left a bad taste in my mouth. Everybody loses bees. That's going to happen. But it took me a long time to figure out, you know, you got to be careful who you listen to. You don't always get the real down low. You got to be careful. And I ended up meeting a guy and going to his house and got to see his operation. And, you know, what he said, good or bad, that's what he said was the way it was. So, but it took me a while to figure it out.
Yeah. You know, that one that I put up right there that put out 200 to 300 pounds of honey. It's easy to put out more honey than you can handle. I guess I first hit that probably 3 years ago, something like that. I jumped from, I went to 50, I think it was 50 gallons that I made. And I still handled that pretty well with friends and family and Facebook sales. But then that next year I jumped to 100 gallons. And Lord, I didn't know what to do with all of that. And that's when I started hitting all the farmers markets. And
Yadkin.
Yeah.
I see it all the time.
You know, and
Set up.
So yeah, that can.
And that's what I was trying to think of. What was my biggest challenge is I was kind of thinking more of keeping my workflow and my workload kind of organized enough and in check enough so that I could actually do it all. Because I was doing markets. I was mostly doing markets, a little bit of retail, but that didn't start till I think my second or my third year. So keeping all the marketing and stuff going and keeping production going. But I remember a big challenge I had, and Keith, it was related to what you were just saying, uh, because I was trying to scale my operation for the first number of years. The thing that I didn't put, I put all my effort and my money into boxes and equipment and everything because my mentor said grow into your equipment. He didn't say grow into your honey house, and that was my big problem. was I didn't have a good enough system in my honey house. And in particular, the thing that dogged me for so many years was wax handling. Wax handling. Because a couple of years into this, I actually bought out I guess he was more of a sideline beekeeper. So I had a decent extractor and uncapper and a little sump and whatnot. But it was a long time before I ever got any decent wax handling system. It was just terrible for so many years. And then I sprung for this spinner that I bought, and that's changed my life. That thing. As much as I complain about it, I mean, it's terrible build quality, but for what it does for me, it's changed my life. So, which is really kind of a dichotomy that I have such terrible things to say about it, but good things to say about it in the same breath. So, I think that's one thing that a beekeeper, if you're, going to maybe scale a little bit or jump in with maybe more than one or two hives, don't discount what's going to happen. And I'll wag my finger at you guys down south with your YouTube videos. There's a common thing that I hear from a lot of beekeepers, and most of them in the south. And I'm talking in the south of the 49th parallel. That's what I call the south. You're not going to get honey your first year. That's not a Canadian thing. You are going to get lots of honey your first year. And that catches a lot of people off guard because they're taking in all the social media, all the YouTube and all the social media information, and they don't realize how localized that information can be. And they keep hearing this: you're not going to get honey your first year, you're not going to get honey your first year. And then they end up with 150 to 200 pounds of honey off of this thing that was a nuke 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So that can really catch you off guard. You don't have an extractor. You don't have even a basic uncapping tank. You have no pails to put this stuff in. You don't even know how to do it, right? And you've got all of this honey your first year. So that could really, really catch a person off guard, specifically in this part of the world where you're getting a far larger harvest than a lot of places.
I don't tell people that, Brad, because I got honey my first year on a package from John Harbaugh. I don't tell people that at all.
They shouldn't listen to you anyway because you don't do how-to videos.
I know, but I tell them about my meetings. At my meetings, I don't tell them that. Do I, Joey? I don't say that. If they get me, hey, look, if they get a small hive and it's small or it's a small swarm or something, I'll look at them and say, hey, look, don't count on it this year. Just grow them. Your goal is to get them through winter. That's your goal.
Yeah.
But I look at a nuke that I sell people. 3 of my nukes that I sold last year made honey. A nuke that I sold a few weeks ago, I said, hey, man, I think you may better put a double on that. He sent me a picture of that thing. It had already built so much burr comb up in the lid full of honey. You got the right mentorship. You can get you some honey if you do it right.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And
I remember that in my first, I don't know, my second, I think it was my second year. I bought a bunch of nukes from a beekeeper around here. And, it took delivery late May, perhaps. Well, by the end of July, those things had 125 pounds of honey on each one of them, right? And it's just, well, how did you do that on 5 frames, right? Quite surprising.
Yep.
And it's regional, like you say. It is regional. I mean, I'm sure there's places you got got a compact spring that you get them late in the spring, then sure, maybe not. I suppose, yeah. It just depends. I think on definitely regional.
Yeah, and this goes back to that's another thing that catches folks, like we talked about earlier, watching them beekeepers in a different part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it.
It doesn't have to be very far away.
No,
I really lucked out when I started beekeeping. I was not a social person, and I wasn't part of the clubs. I didn't have a mentor. I wasn't talking to anybody really. So I was all online, right? Because I've been a computer guy for decades, and I was reading everything I could read, and I found this guy who was writing. He would write a little blog entry every day, and it might be one paragraph or two or three, and he would write that, and it wasn't always about bees. It usually wasn't about bees in the winter, about something else on the farm, and I would read it. It would be interesting, and I realized, oh, this guy's in Manitoba. Okay, that's good. I can kind of look at what this guy's doing. He's been keeping bees for 15 years or whatever it was, and I realized that his season, he was far enough. He was in Manitoba, so it was very relevant information. But he was far enough from me that in the spring, at least, his season was about a week ahead of mine. So I could look up his blog entry, find out what he's doing, and have time to go to the store and get the things I need, pollen patties, feed pails, all that kind of stuff, and then come home and implement what he was doing.
That's pretty sweet.
I mean, it was a perfect situation.
It was like time travel.
It absolutely was. So
you can see into the future.
I chose him for my mentor, and then he started doing YouTube and quit the written blog and started doing a YouTube blog, and the rest is history. And he lives near Miami, Manitoba. So
yeah,
you know what I'm talking about.
Might be.
So he was my mentor for a couple of years before he knew it.
Okay. Yeah, he popped through here just a little while ago.
Yeah, he was. He said hi.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was just absolutely perfect. That he was just a little ahead of my season, and in Manitoba yet, right?
Yeah, that worked out good.
And doing the blog, it couldn't have been any better.
Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this thing off here shortly. I didn't know it, but Todd and Brian are having their Westward Bees chat. I usually try to cut it off a little bit earlier, but we were having such a good time. I'll let it run for a little bit. Yeah, this has been very good. A little bit of housekeeping. I want to thank Benny Stillman for the super chat. Appreciate it, Benny. I met him down at the Moxville Market the other day. We had a real good chat. And Kevin, thank you, Kevin, for the super chat. Me and Kevin, we chat quite a bit during the week. Met him up at Nobby last year. We had a good time. Looking forward to next year. So good to see all these folks in here. But yeah, this has been a great chat. I think we've put out some good information. I mean, from our experiences, and I've learned a lot from you guys. I guess back to the bottom line of everything we're talking about. If you want something, we're not telling you not to do it, but a lot of stuff that's out there, you don't have to have it. Look around, make sure you've got a need for it. Before Norman left, he mentioned the InstaVap being the greatest thing that he had ever seen. Well, if you ever tried to use one of those little pan vaporizers, the little thing on the end, you stick in there and you catch your hive on fire, and it kills all the bees. And the jump from that to an actual vaporizer, that was a pretty amazing jump. That was a good pinnacle. We'll call that a pinnacle. So, and then my next little pinnacle on that is when I went from the one that plugged in the wall to a battery powered one. I should have done that a lot sooner. I can
relate. Exactly the same thing. I went from the one to the ProVap. Used the ProVap for years, and then went to the instant battery system, and that just took it to the next level.
Oh yeah, yeah, big difference. Big
I
difference.
am in love with that tool. I'm absolutely
Yeah.
in love with that tool. That
Yeah.
tool is, for the size of my operation and what it does for me, I could justify buying a brand new one every year if I had to, for what it does for me. Seriously.
Yeah, yeah, I should have made that change from the plug-in model to the battery a lot sooner, but I was too cheap. So
Well, it's a big nut to crack, but
Yeah.
But again, talking about the bottom line, right? I can make those choices if the payback is there, and the payback is absolutely there for what it does for me.
Yep, no doubt. And that's kind of like the that new little smoker that's coming along. I got mine today. I think might have mentioned it earlier. I don't have a battery for it yet, but that is going to fill a need for me because I bounce around helping other beekeepers, and it's a pain to fire up your smoker and snuff it out and fire it up and snuff it out. When you're running around and trying not to catch your car on fire, that little smoker will fill a need that I have. Is it cheap? No, there's a price to pay, but it's going to be so nice just to pull that thing out and puff a hive and stick it back in the car and roll.
Yeah. That would serve a need in my apiary for sure, because my smoker, I spend time starting my smoker. I go to work my hives. I might use it a little bit. By the time I realize I need a smoker, it's 15 hives back and it's gone out.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because my bees are not mean, and so I don't have to smoke every kind of. So that little thing really would serve a need in my apiary.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to firing that little thing up.
What was your number? Your order number on that thing?
I want to say 330 something. I'd have to look it up. But it was in the 300s. But yeah, I think I'll go ahead and close this out. Y'all can run over to Westward Bees over with Brian and Todd. They usually pop in and mention to me they got a chat going on, and I realized that I was poking around and I found it. They do have a live going on, so it's always interesting. But gentlemen, I appreciate y'all coming on. Norman, give us a hunting update. Were you successful?
Oh boy, yeah. My apologies, gentlemen. I had a little drama here, and I'll just say that we brought order back to the farm.
What was it? A fox?
I won't say on the YouTube because I don't know what the rules are about that sort of thing.
Yeah,
I'll say that there was disturbance.
Don't get me demonetized or blocked here.
And now there's not a disturbance anymore. I'll tell you after.
Okay. Yeah, it's a deal. We can do that. But I'll go ahead and close this thing out. Thank you so much, folks in the chat. I appreciate the support. You don't know how much that means to me. It's good to see everybody in here every week, and hopefully you're getting some good information out of these chats. We're trying hard to come up with some good topics that we think will help folks, and I think we're doing pretty good at it. So obviously we got to have the horsepower to do it, and these gentlemen that are in here tonight, that's a lot of horsepower over there. I like that. So I appreciate y'all coming.
We have a good host.
Y'all have a great week, and we look forward to seeing you again same time next week. Take care.
Good night, everybody.
Night, everybody.
Good night.